As an entrepreneur, it is important to position your business for success as well as being able to access finance. Our next speaker is KeaObaka Mahuma, who is the head of SME Banking for ABSA, and he will be sharing some key entrepreneurial insights with us. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. We don't need to remind this audience about entrepreneurship because they are the lifeblood of every economy. We know that because they solve problems, they improve lifestyles, most importantly, they take risks and drive forward the economic agenda of the countries which they serve. Entrepreneurship is not easy. We understand that. There's a few things that entrepreneurs know that other normal and ordinary people don't understand. That includes they take total responsibility for the actions that they take or the actions that they fail to take. They also understand that every day they must go out and hunt and kill and eat. They also understand that no kill, no food. And I guess in the local language, we could say they understand bring and buy. So no bring, no buy. But that's the life of entrepreneurs. They always take a long-term view of things, but assess things on a short-term basis. They always believe what others find difficult to believe or to understand. They will keep on going even when everybody has given up and gone home. They are resilient and keep going even when their backs are against the wall, especially if they don't get paid for the work that they have done. When they fall, they learn. They dust themselves up, give it a go again until they win. They accept there is something called delayed gratification, which means they understand that the only thing that's instant is coffee. I've had the opportunity of being an entrepreneur. I now have a greater privilege of helping entrepreneurs access finance, access markets, and build capacity for their businesses. Sometimes when you get asked to speak as a banker, you feel like you are an endangered species. Because somebody's always going to say, where's the money? Today, with the time that I have, I want to talk to the entrepreneurs, those who won today and those who will win tomorrow. I want to talk about how to prepare your business for access to finance, the 7 things that every entrepreneur should know. You know, sometimes, and I guess sometimes it's a banker's problem because we always decline people. We don't tell them why we decline them. So hopefully today you will learn a few things that you will take into your business. As you build your business, always think about the next people who will invest. The first thing that we assess as financiers, not just as banks, is we look at what we call affordability. Affordability means, will the business be able to provide the investors to your business a return? Or if it's debt, will the business be able to service that? Often we find people who come to banks with expenses that exceed income, and then they say, fund us. But there's no affordability there. So there is no way you can fund a business like that. And because most entrepreneurs, they get their living from the business, when we assess affordability, we assess the business and we assess you. Because we know what actually happens is, should you run out of cash, children need school fees, the first place you're going to get it is in the business. So that's why we have to look at you as the entrepreneur and look at your business and see if there is affordability. The second thing that we look at is what we call the behavioral traits. The reality is, if you couldn't handle 1,000 rands, you will do worse with 1,000,000 rands. Writing those bouncing checks, doing things that you shouldn't be doing, with always your account is always overdrawn. Those are the things that we look at. Because behavioral economics tells us the best predictor of future performance is past behavior. So the way somebody has behaved in the past with how they've handled money, their money or the money of the business, is the way we can expect them to handle the borrowed money that they're going to get or the investment of somebody else. So that's the second thing that we always need to be thinking about. There is nothing more important. In actual fact, the great King Solomon said, it is better to have a good reputation than have great riches. So your name is everything. Now, does it mean that if you have blemishes on your name, we won't help you? No, of course we will help you. But unfortunately, under those circumstances, you have to do a little bit more work. If there were people you owing that you haven't paid, then we have to work for payment arrangements. And unfortunately, banks especially, they work with within what they call the National Credit Act. If you fall within that, by law, we're supposed to look at everything. Check the assets you have, the ones that your grandmother has, and everything. Well, I'm joking. It's not the ones that your grandmother has, but we have to look and see if we can answer the affordability. The third one is C. So A was for affordability, B was behavioral traits, C was for comfort on the certainty of the cash flows. Let me be bold and say, I work for a great bank, the Red Bank, but debt is not always, in fact, debt is not the preferred way of financing a startup. For the simple reason being that the cash flows of a startup are not certain. They go up, they go down, they go up. Sometimes you don't get paid, sometimes you don't get customers. So what you don't want to do is you do not want to take a fixed commitment of debt which needs to be repaid regardless of whether the cash flow is there or not, and put it into a startup business. So if you're going to do a startup, it is generally not advisable that you start with debt. Grant funding these days is available. Enterprise development funding is available. You can borrow from your uncles and your friends and everybody else just to get the business to a stage where the cash flows can be predictable. Then you can start thinking about, how do I get financing? Then you can get your short-term financing in terms of your overdrafts, your purchase order discounting, purchase order financing, and invoice discounting. But the C talks to certainty of your cash flows. So that's what you always need to be thinking about. Because often people approach financiers or investors, and then they are asking for 100 million, and you ask them, where's the cash flows? Well, I think the cash flow is going to come. You know, hope is a very dangerous strategy when it comes to running a business. And D talks to delivery capacity. Your ability to deliver on what you have contracted to. Delivery capacity also talks to management capacity, management depth. Sometimes you have somebody who was given R1 million contract and he wakes up the next day, he's a black industrialist, but doesn't know how they're going to deliver. Well, the reality is, if you're not gonna deliver, you're not gonna get paid. If you're not gonna get paid, you cannot service your debts, or you can't give the investors their returns. So you got to spend time looking at your ability to deliver. Can I deliver? Do I have the management capacity? Do I have the management team? Do I have the systems? Do I have the processes? Oh, how many times do entrepreneurs work for 3 months without invoicing ever somebody? But they forget that they have to pay salaries, pay SARS, pay everybody else, and this is what trips them. So you've got to ask the question, do I have the capacity to deliver? The fifth thing is an E. We look at what we call expertise and experience. Do you have what it takes to deliver what needs to be delivered? Now, there's nothing wrong with venturing into a new industry to try to break new ground. But you know, true entrepreneurs are empire builders. They're not grave diggers. You obviously know the difference between an empire builder and a grave digger. An empire builder starts from ground floor and builds up. A grave digger starts from ground floor and ends up 6 feet under. So as an entrepreneur, you want to start building up. So if you don't have the knowledge base, you don't have the expertise, you don't have the experience, you start small, build up to a level where you can confidently and without any shadow of doubt say, I can do this. I can do it with my eyes closed, because then you are able to give your customers the consistency of performance and guarantee them that they will get what they have asked for. And so many times, you want to use borrowed money or investors' money to do trial and error on something. No one is going to give you the money, because at the end of the day, like I was speaking to AJ, we were having a conversation. I know people always say bankers are the problem, or banks are the problem. But I found out that actually banks are not the problem, and AJ told me that it's because I'm defending myself. I found out that banks are not the problem. The bigger problem is the depositors, because I have never found a depositor who says, it's okay, if you lend my money and lose it, it's okay, I'll write it off. Because from a banking perspective, the things that we look at is, we look at performance risk, can you perform? We also look at payment risk, can you be paid? If we can answer the two questions, and obviously we have to go through the other risk called the fraud risk, because so many people have invented schemes of getting money out of banks. So we're gonna have to address the fraud risk, performance risk, and payment risk. And if we get those and we are comfortable with it, then it's not a problem to extend the lending. As you build your business, try to think about how you position your business through your business plan, because sometimes people just give you a business plan. What is worse with most of those business plans is that they were written by somebody else. Then the F stands for, what are the formal support programs that help you? Somebody once said that there is no shortcut to experience, but mentorship is the shortest bridge to bridge the gap between what you know and what you don't know. When we talk about support programs, we talk about mentorships, we talk about coaching, we talk about consultants, we talk about business support that you may have, and we talk about technical support or business support. You have to be able to say, yes, I don't know, but I've got this formal support that will help me to deliver, so that there is no performance issue. All of these support programs are aimed to deliver consistency. What we're interested in as investors and financiers is we are interested in your ability to perform. Because we know if you can perform and you're doing work for the right client, it's just a matter of time before you get paid. Now, I guess at this point, I must mention, because I had somebody from one department telling us that banks are the problem. Now, if your customer is not paying you and you have problems, banks can't solve that problem, actually. Because ultimately, even the bank wants to be paid. Now, if your customer is not paying you, you're transferring the problem to the bank. Actually, it raises a moral issue for the bank. Why should the bank lend you money when they know for sure your customer won't pay you? Because the next logical thing is, because we have depositors' monies, like I explained, that the depositor is the problem, I have to go and account to the depositor. So if you don't get paid, there has to be legal action. So often, and I understand it's difficult with entrepreneurs. I think I have seen sad stories. I think there were some years, one of the entities in the public sector, and it's better not to mention its name, but they were not paying. And in fact, this lady called on 702, and she actually said, I had to liquidate my business because so-and-so never paid. And I think it's an unfortunate thing that entrepreneurship is difficult by itself. But I think the environment, the stakeholders, the customers, the corporates, the banks, everybody, we just make it difficult for everybody else. But as the president said, we're going to all lend our hands to help the entrepreneurs do well. The last letter, G, stands for governance. Nobody wants to lend money to any business or any institution that cannot tell the difference between personal account and business account. I know it's quite a common thing for many entrepreneurs. When they short school fees, they take the business account, the money from the business account, and then they do what they do. What I did realize is the risk that a financier has in a business that has got poor governance is this. In certain industries, even with our tax payments, if you owe the taxman, there is a section in the Tax Act that authorizes the taxman to get into your bank account without your consent, in actual fact, to instruct the bank to take money out of your account and pay it to the taxman. So as an investor or a financier, you do not want to lend money to an entity like that for the simple reason that if they should get penalized and the money has to be paid, you are the one who's losing as an investor. So this is why these issues of governance are important. You've got to pay attention to your governance. Are you registered for all the taxes that you're supposed to register for? Are you following the legislation in your industry? Are you making a separation between your personal and business account? If you do those things, there may be other things, but the 7 things that I have shared with you will probably position you to access finance better. In conclusion, or let me start again. A means affordability, B means behavioral traits, C means certainty of cash flows, D means delivery capacity, E means expertise and experience, F means formal support programs, G talks to governance. If you always keep that framework and as you do your business plan, you try to address those things, your chances of raising finance will be improved. I would also like, as my last point in conclusion, to congratulate those who have received the prizes. If you haven't received the prize, it doesn't mean that you haven't won. I am reminded of a story of an entrepreneur who failed 3 times before he built one of the biggest businesses in the world. One man who had just failed once went to him and said, "Sir, I have a problem. Can you help me?" And he said, "I have so many problems." And he said to him, "Do you want me to get rid of your problems?" And he said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I have just gone past the place and I've seen people who don't have problems." He says, "Take me there." He says, "Do you want to go there?" And then he said, "Yes." He says, "It's the cemetery. Only people in the graveyards don't have problems." And then he said to him, "Listen." He says, "But I failed, I'm so down and I'm so out." He said, "Then you must be very happy, because for you, there's only one way, and it's up." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.